Welcome to An Outside View. I'm your host, Dick Sicaro, and joining today are three distinguished guests. We have Richard Pila, we have Valerie Corey, and Vic Senna. Welcome to An Outside View.
Thank you.
I have the pleasure of serving with these fine individuals as a representative town meeting member. We have some interesting meetings, to say the least, twice a year at town meeting. So before we get into some of the issues that you feel are important, some of the changes you'd like to see as representative town meeting members, why don't we just take a real quick minute and talk about your personal background so we can give the viewers an idea of how diverse our group is.
Right.
Richard, we'll start with you.
Sure. Richard Pila, been a resident of town, Walpole, for 10 years now. Actually this month, 10 years. And my wife and I love it here. It's a great town, great community spirit. Professionally, I'm the managing member of a commercial real estate firm based in Quincy, Massachusetts. The name of the firm is Paramount Partners. And we work primarily in the retail sector throughout most of New England.
Excellent. Val?
Hi, thanks for having me and asking me. My name is Val and Corey, and I've been in Walpole for, I think, a little over 25 years, actually, so I beat you, Richard. Professionally, I am a personal trainer and a nutritionist, and I also do media advertising sales, so I get a little bit of everything going on. And I'm a second-term town meeting representative, and I've enjoyed it, and I've learned quite a bit, honestly, and I hope to continue, and I hope to continue putting my efforts forth to represent the people in my precinct.
Excellent. Vic?
My name is Vic Senna. I live in Precinct 8, and I'm a manufacturer's agent selling to the oil and gas industry, offshore oil and gas, power generation, and been in town for 43 years, so I beat all you guys.
You
Wow.
did. You're the winner. You are.
Excellent. Well, I'm relatively a newcomer compared to you folks. I've been here about, I think, 4 years now, but I have to share a quick story with the viewers and audience that I'm from Brockton, and I lived in Brockton most of my life, 60 years, of my 66, so 62. And then one day I get an email as we're moving to Walpole. We live right on Common Street, about a quarter mile down the street. And I get an email from Vic, and he traced kind of my political activism in Brockton. I ran for office several times. I had my cable show named An Outside View as well. That's where it started.
Oh, okay.
In Brockton. It was rather kind of a controversial show. You know, like they told Harry Truman, give him hell, Harry. He said, no, I'm just going to tell him the truth, which I did. That was the model that I ran my show by. So Vic said, we followed you. You started Brocktonians for limited taxation. Would you join some of our efforts in Walpole? I said to my wife, here we go again. I haven't even moved to town.
You thought you escaped.
He said, you're going to cause trouble again? I said, no, I'm just going to do what I think is right.
I had somebody following him all the time.
He never
funny.
He never divulged the whistleblower source.
No. That's a pride.
All right, so let's get into some issues. We recently had, as you folks know out there, we have 2 town meetings, one in the spring, one in the fall. So we just finished our fall town meeting. And there were some controversial items, one being the ball field. The people are fully aware of it. I had a few of the selectmen on previous shows, and we talked about it, so they're up with it. But let's talk about, first of all, the ball field vote, which was very close. Maybe, Richard, you can start with the vote, how it went down, and maybe some of the thoughts behind it, and if it was a legitimate vote or not.
Well, first off, the vote required, any spending vote requires 2/3. And the subject of fields came before us in the Springtown meeting, and at which point it was defeated. The article was defeated because the proponents did not receive the necessary 2/3. It was like, I think, a 1 or 2 vote difference, Victor?
I think it might have been a little bit more than that.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So then they wanted a reconsideration, and reconsideration that was defeated. So In the Springtown meeting, the funding for the fields did not pass. Apparently they made some changes, but if you really look at the changes, it seems that we were paying the same amount of money but getting less. At town meeting, I asked a series of questions. I'm not against the ball fields. There are those who feel it's in the wrong location. The construction materials were an issue, but I focused on the financing of the project, and the cost of the project. You know, one of the responsibilities I believe as RTMs that we have is to protect the taxpayer dollars. There are projects that need to be done that are required to run a successful town, and but sometimes we tend to spend more than what we should. So I focused on the cost side of that,
Right.
and I just feel that that the cost was excessive.
Right.
We can get into more of that later,
Right.
but
No,
that was the reason why I voted against the fields. Not because I'm against the fields, I was against the cost of the fields. Because one of the things when you approve a project, it's not just the initial construction cost.
That's correct.
But what is the long-term cost? How many people need to staff and maintain that facility? One of the questions I asked was, are we going to be using existing Walpole personnel, or are we hiring more people? What's the cost of that? I think they had mentioned that there were going to be 3 or 4 new hires.
Right.
Well, the taxpayers need to know
Right.
what that cost is. So when you look at a project, it's not just the construction,
Right.
it is also the management and the maintenance of that project over the long haul.
Right.
And so that was never brought out before.
Right.
And that, again, that was my big qualm with
Right.
the Fields project.
And Valerie, I think you brought up a possible suggestion that any budgetary item more than, let's say, 5% of the total budget. So
Right.
the total budget, I believe, is right around 100 million.
Right.
Anything over 5 million in an article at town meeting, perhaps should go to the full voters on a
Absolutely.
referendum versus
Absolutely.
the 156 or how many RTMs show up.
That's
You want
correct.
to elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, and I don't think perhaps, I think absolutely 100% should go to the population that's actually paying their taxes and let them vote at the ballot, you know. And I think that 5 million is a good amount, you know, and I mentioned that, and I've said it before, and I wonder sometimes why they just don't do that. Is it something that they fear, or
Right.
not they, but whoever is the board of selectmen? Do they not want the people to really vote on it? Because that's how it looks to me, you know.
Right.
And and as Richard said, I don't see tons of like forecasting into the future
Right.
in what I've seen so far as a town meeting rep. And regarding the fields, I mean, obviously, our fields are in such horrible condition. Well, then we can't maintain them appropriately. Now you want to put 4 new fields, and I'm with Richard too. If we need fields, we need fields. But that said, there is that cost associated, and I don't think, why would you need 3 or 4 more hires, full-time hires, to run 4 fields? So a lot of it I just don't get, and I don't get the way they present it, and the way they, quite frankly, you know, they come back within 15 minutes of a break, asking for another revote again, and that's bothersome to me as well. It just doesn't seem, I guess the catchphrase is transparent. But it definitely doesn't seem transparent,
Right.
and it doesn't seem like
Right.
they are willing to listen to any other opinions or suggestions or any type of compromise, not just with the fields right
Right.
now, but just in general.
Right.
And I find that bothersome as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Victor, as Richard pointed out in the spring meeting, the ball fields vote did not pass, and then they
Correct.
revisited it in the fall. So the best of my recollection, the vote was as follows. You had 91 favorable for the fields, you had 45 against the fields,
Correct.
and you had 1 vote that abstained from a vote.
Correct.
So there's controversy right now as who, if that person that abstained count towards the total vote. Now, they did issue us at a meeting electronic voting device.
Right.
There were
Right.
3 options, 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. So it was a voting option. Now,
Correct.
you made a call to Secretary of State's office
Twice.
and you were informed that first the absentee vote should have counted towards the total vote. And this is very significant, people, because
It is, yes.
they won by 1 vote, and the town council said the state charter, state laws state that it doesn't count. But Vic, I'm going to let you elaborate on it because it's very important. If the total was 136, it passes by a vote. 2/3 would have been, I believe, 66 point.
If we used the abstaining vote of 137,
Right.
for a total of 137, they would have gotten 64, I think it was 64.17%.
Right.
Without that vote, then they get the 66.7.
Right.
So it's a small margin, but it's the margin between victory and defeat.
So why don't you elaborate that on, Vic, a little of some
Yeah,
of the efforts
no,
going on right now?
we calculated with the 137 votes, it comes out to be 66.4%. 66.45, you know.
Right.
So 66.4%. And when I called the Secretary of State, the first time I called, they said that it does count in the overall vote. Okay? I did call back a second time, and they kind of had a conference with 2 or 3 people on the line while I was there, and they said, well, it could count and it couldn't count. Check with your town charter. Okay? And then I looked in Robert's rules, and Robert's rules basically says the same thing. It could count or it could not count.
Right.
But the town charter does not refer to Robert's rules or any
Right.
protocol. When the moderator asked town council for a decision, she hesitated, and then she said, no, it does count. But she didn't refer or reference any statute.
Right.
So does it or does it not?
Right.
So
And this
that's
had-
something that we're looking into,
Right.
And we'll get to the bottom of it, and we'll let the chips fall where they may.
Right, it's a major expenditure as well. I mean, in the spring
major
they wanted like
expenditure.
13 million, then they cut it to 9.
Right.
So
Right.
it's huge. Now there was another issue too, I believe, in precinct 1. The format is when you elect new RTMs. In past history, they went by a ballot vote. So Richie, you
Well,
want
the
to
town
comment on
charter
that?
is very clear on that, that all votes are to be secret votes, they can be paper ballot votes. That was what the RTMs present were anticipating. Matter of fact, the town clerk had stopped by just prior to the meeting and said that this had to be a paper vote.
Right.
She left because there were 3 caucuses going on that evening. One was in precinct 8, the other was in precinct 3. And so after she left, a couple of the RTMs in precinct 1 said, no, we're going to have a roll call vote. That's against the charter.
Right.
The group, the vote went on, and I believe that vote should be rescinded.
Right. So we still, there's still some options being discussed out there about the validity of the vote in precinct 1
Absolutely.
and whether or not that absentee vote counted or not.
Right.
You know, past guests I've had on my show, they talk about the finance committee. Now, the finance committee members, I believe, are 15 members.
Right.
The town moderator selects the finance
Right.
committee, which is key because they
Very
recommend
key.
a lot to the articles to go on in town meetings, and they work with the selectmen. It seems like almost everything they vote on goes through 15-0, 14-1.
Honestly,
Correct.
I don't think I've ever seen them have a no vote in the finance committee. It really, it's
This
amazing.
finance committee.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
Since I've been,
Right.
since
When-
I've been
when
there,
John
sorry.
When John Valancourt
Sure.
was the chairman, we would
This
look at
finance
the
committee.
votes on each of the articles.
Right.
And there were 9-6 or 8-7.
A little bit of
There was a debate among the finance committee members, which
Right.
is what should take place.
And there was a reason for that, okay? The town moderator at the time, Tom Brady, made sure that he split it up along conservative and liberal lines.
Right.
So there was a mix. The way the town moderator has it set up now, his view of
Diversity.
diversity is from where you come from in town,
Right.
not your point of view.
Well, I think that's an easy way for him to say it.
Right, right.
We all know what real, you know,
But all the boards are stacked like that
they're
now.
stacked like that. And they're deliberately stacked like that. And they're deliberately stacked like that because you have someone who has the ability to appoint for all the boards.
Right.
And they're going to appoint people who have their ideology, their
Correct.
thoughts, or who they can, who they can coerce a little bit maybe. And that's the way it is. And so that's wrong. And we all
Right.
know it's wrong, no matter what environment or what board it is, that's wrong. And that's another example of why anything over a certain amount of money should go to the people of the town to vote on.
Absolutely.
Because it's their money. It's not just the people on the finance committee's money.
Right. So perhaps a suggestion would be have the finance committee members run for the office. I mean, it's in the charter that the town moderator appoints
Yeah,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
along with the personnel
finance-
board.
course.
Yes.
And
Along
And
with all
the
the boards,
capital
right.
budget
Powerful
committee.
Capital
position.
Budget Committee.
Right.
Right, and that's
So-
where the money's spent, right?
Right.
Between those three boards.
Correct.
That's where the money is.
Right.
You know,
And
we
I-
have a representative town meeting form of government in Walpole. Our job is to represent the people of our respective precincts.
Correct.
Right.
Unfortunately, there are members, RTM members, who are not looking at the welfare of their precinct, the
Right.
voters of their precinct,
Right.
but they may be swayed more by a special interest.
Correct.
Well,
Correct.
that's a conflict.
Absolutely.
That's a conflict. That's like, for example, we had, again, the charter clearly states that any person who directly, a person or a family member, benefits from a particular article, they have to, they are to recuse themselves from voting.
They should.
Yet there are people who, there, every
Unbelievable.
spring meeting,
Unbelievable.
when we
Right.
go through the budget, that are voting, and it affects them directly.
Right. I mean, you people have
That's
been
wrong.
along a lot longer than I have, but I noticed a trend that it seems like every town meeting, we have a block of about 24 votes that outvote us almost on everything.
Right.
The Walpole going totally percent green by a certain year, the ramifications. I know, Vic, you were heavily involved with that conversation. By the way, these three individuals, they're very active RTMs, and it's pleasurable to watch them get up there, very articulate.
Very
They
pleasurable,
state
I'm
their
sure.
problem, their positions very clearly, make no mistake about that. But let's talk about some of the other issues in town too, on what you think, or how you think town meeting could be changed and more effective. It's a great example you mentioned, Richard. It's sort of a parallel between the electoral vote that elects the president and the popular vote. Same thing here.
Right.
It's the RTMs versus, let's say, an override on Proposition 2.5 on school improvements.
Right.
It has to go out in a referendum for an override, and
Right.
99% of them go down. So it's an interesting example that you highlighted.
Well, how many overrides votes were there? And
When?
what, over the last 5 or 6 years, maybe 12? And what, and 10 of them were defeated?
Yes.
That goes to show you that the RTMs are not in sync with the electorate.
Right, correct. I agree.
And that goes back to town
Explain.
moderator appointing
Appointing the finance committee members.
finance
that
committee,
set the
capital
agendas.
budget committee.
Correct.
When someone comes before the finance committee, the position of the finance committee should be no. The position should be no. Now, convince us why we
Right.
should approve your request.
Right,
Let
right.
them make the argument.
Right,
That doesn't happen. You don't have that debate.
right.
They don't have that position, that mindset. It's just, how much more do you want? You want $1 million? Well, we'll
Right.
give you $1.5 million.
So
Right.
another example, Richard, that you brought out that I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100%, is more fiscal accountability with the budget and capital expenditures and where the money's being spent. It seems like every town meeting, you're given a report like 3 days before the meeting. They did that same
Exactly.
thing in Brockton as well with the city council. They gave them a report, financial report, about 500 pages the day before they voted on the budget.
Right.
Sometimes I think that's planned, but you mentioned zero-based budgeting. You want to comment on that a little?
Yeah.
That I think that would really tighten up the
I mentioned this a few
loopholes
times
in
over
the
the years
budget.
at the town meeting. Zero-based budget is that every year you start from zero. And every department head comes before FinCom and says,
The finance committee, right?
right, this is what we're looking for. Okay, the FinCom question should say, all right, how are you going to spend this money? Well, we have so many personnel. We need to replace 3 vehicles. There's equipment that we need to purchase. You have to justify it. Now, every
Right.
year, you don't have the same needs. Needs
Correct.
change from
Right.
year to year. You're not buying 3 new vehicles or replacing a new computer system every year, maybe every
Right.
4th year. So, of course, the budgets should, the appropriations to those departments should reflect what department heads need for that fiscal year.
Right,
And some years it should go down.
right.
If you buy
Yes.
one year 100 shovels, are you going to buy 100 shovels next year and the year after? No, those shovels should last
No, but
Right.
they'll
at least
need
2 or
something
3 or
else.
5 years.
Yeah,
So, and it also keeps everybody, keeps them honest.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying honest in an honest, dishonest way.
Right.
I'm not saying that at all. But
Accurate.
it makes you do your homework.
Right,
What do you need? Each department head should be asking, what do they want to accomplish this coming year? And what do you need for resources, human and non-human resources, to accomplish those objectives?
Right.
yeah. When
I
I
don't
had
think-
former Selectwoman Ann Regostron, I gave her some ideas to present to Jim Johnson and her fellow select people. 3 major areas they can improve on. They can either look at a better and more efficient healthcare system instead of being, I believe they're
Yes.
in like a local county.
county.
Take a look at the state GIC that has 450,000 members that can give you volume discounts without sacrificing providers. They utilize pretty much the same providers. They could more aggressively invest the OPEB unfunded liability of millions of dollars going forward by more aggressively setting up so you wouldn't need as many tax dollars or appropriations. Investment earnings would lower that amount. They can look into joining the state retirement system that is a $65 billion plan instead of being a Norfolk County retirement system where they pay their managers more to run and the returns are better in the state system. So there's
the-
many things they could look into,
I don't
but
think they want to.
sometimes outside agendas come in. So let's talk,
Right.
Valerie, real quickly about open transparency in government. Do you feel this town has open transparency?
I don't
Enough.
feel it does, and I'm not singling out Walpole because I'm sure many towns
happens
do
all over
not.
the place.
It's just become more apparent to me because of the way things are done. There's certain methods of operations, things constantly being put back on the ballot within minutes, with all of a
Right.
sudden $4 million taken out, or this or that, and like you said, when you receive the information, the financial information, and the way it's just run in general. So I do feel that there is no transparency. And I know people say, I know that's just such a buzzword, you know, and so you can pretend you're transparent.
Right.
And you can have open meetings. See, we're transparent. But it doesn't mean you also haven't had behind closed doors meetings that quite frankly no one is aware of because they're
Correct.
behind closed doors, and you plan your agenda
Right.
accordingly in those meetings, and then you have your transparent public meeting, but you still do what your plans are.
Right.
It's just almost little show, you know. Like I said, I don't think they actually really take into consideration other things other than their own social views, as far as what would benefit Walpole, how much better can this be to make Walpole better, or make Walpole compete maybe with towns that they feel are maybe out of our league right now. And I think that's sort of my mindset of the way it is. There's just no compromise whatsoever. And the way they do appoint the boards, it's apparent.
Right.
And quite frankly, when you are voting at town meeting and they do those roll call votes, it's you know, the town moderator is calling that, you know, did he hear it a little bit louder for yeses or nos? Maybe it's really close, but since I want it to be yes, the yeses have it. And I'm not saying that he has done that,
Right.
but I'm just saying sometimes it's a subconscious thing, you know? So I don't think the whole process is transparent. And one of the biggest things that is not transparent is their refusal to put questions on the ballot
Right.
that they don't necessarily want on the ballot.
Excellent. We get about, let me see, about 3.5 minutes left. So let me
Wow,
ask you some
time
rapid
flies.
fire questions. Time flies when you're having fun. Term limits, yes or no?
Absolutely.
Al?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Victor. All right. Do
absolutely.
you think this town needs more affordable housing?
No.
I need to see the numbers.
It's
Val?
rapid fire, Richard.
Yes or no, Val? You said-
I would say not in the form of apartments, but I think I would love to see the homes more affordable and have builders come in here and build, you know, 3-bedroom splits.
You think the town should go 100% green energy by a certain date? I even forget what the date is.
It's not feasible. It's not feasible.
Okay. Val?
No, I agree with Richard.
I'm in the business, it's impossible.
That's right, impossible.
I've read many articles on that. Okay, so we have, let me see, about 3 minutes left. So I always give my guests opening statements and closing statements. So real quickly, if you can each take about a minute, how you would like to see the town approved perspective of an RTM.
Every so often, any organization, any community, any municipality should take a step back and say, what kind of a company, what type of a town do we want to be?
Right.
And when you have, once you reach consensus, then all of your planning should be geared towards what that goal is. And towns change.
Right.
Demographics change. And the needs 20 years ago are different than the needs today. And they'll be different in 20 years. But that's why you need to constantly step back and take a look, rather than do the same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah. Valerie?
I agree with Richard so much.
Okay, you want to add anything to his?
yeah,
Because I paid her to do that.
Yes.
Uh,
I do think that there should be term limits, and I think that has a lot to do with what Richard just said. You know, you keep the
Right.
same people in over and over and over again, and nothing changes because it is hard to change.
Right.
You know, and I think that as far as the town meeting reps themselves, who are voted in, you know, and I think that many people have been in there for term after term after term after term. And I think that should also apply to town meeting reps, quite frankly. Just to be sort of fair and share the wealth, if you will, and listen. So I am a strong believer in that, and I would like to see some changes, but I mostly would like to see the changes done in the transparency of the meetings and the voting and what's really going on behind there, and just find it curious that nothing is ever voted to not fiscally move forward.
Right. Vic, you want to add? You agree with them?
I do agree, and I'd like to just take it a step further, okay? When good suggestions are made,
Yes.
on projects, nobody wants to listen to you.
Right.
Okay, we've made this decision, that's how it's going to be.
That's right.
Okay? Even if you could save money, you could make a better project, okay?
Okay.
It happened,
Right.
it happened on the fire station. The town did a master plan years ago, and they said the fire station should have been on Robbins Road. What do? They put it right back in the middle of downtown, and they destroy the parking area
Right.
for the downtown businesses.
Okay, and one last quick question. Any plans of maybe running for another office other than RTM? Select
Yes, Richard, you
President?
should.
We've been thinking about it.
Al?
Not for me, thank you, though.
Victor?
No, thank you.
I
All right,
will
well-
support either one of them, though, that's for sure.
Beautiful. Well, I thank you
Or
so
for you.
much for coming on
Thank
you.
an outside view. It was very enlightening, and I look forward to working with you in future town meetings, and I think you're great people. And if you do run, you have my vote.
Thanks,
All right.
Richard,
Well,
back at
thanks
ya.
again, and thanks for the
Back at
viewers
ya.
for turning
Thank
in.
you, Richard.
Until next outside view, I'll have you people back, hopefully again, if you'd like to come
Yeah.
on,
We'd
All
love
right,
it.
sure, I'd love
as
to.
things develop further.
All right,
Right.
Thank you again.
All right.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.